Hello and welcome to this continuing first look exploring session looking at the Revengers. Decide where you're going to put the apostrophe in later. Tragedy attributed to Thomas Middleton. Everyone's pretty certain it's by Thomas Middleton now. There used to be a time when old Cyril used to get a look in. Bless his cotton socks. The complete works of Cyril Tournier's down to just one play now, which we'll look at later. But I don't know, maybe there's someone out there who still is on the side of Cyril, just calling his name in vain out into the wilderness. You know, we don't care. It's a play. It's quite fun, in a really dark, horrible way. So yes, as we mentioned, yeah, this is a really horrible play with a lot of threatened and or enacted sexual violence, threatened and actual violence occurring as well. And we, because this is quite a well-known play, we kind of know where the bodies are buried, or for that matter, will be buried later on after the horrible murders happen. So yeah, just be warned. This is not a cheerful one, but it's quite enjoyable if you're sociopathic like we are. So we're into Act 2, Scene 2, and we have a wonderful room of readers to keep going. I would do a more active précis of what's going on, but because I missed the first session, I don't want to accidentally tell people what's about to happen later on. So, reading Hippolito and Keeper is...
Hello, my name is Lynn. I am coming to you from the northwestern United States.
Reading Servant, First Noble, First Servant, Supervacuo, and Third Officer is...
Helen in Chapple.
Reading Lussurioso is...
Aliki in Greece.
Reading Vindice is...
Brian Myers, also in the Pacific Northwest.
Reading Duke, Junior Brother, and Third Noble is...
Sue in London.
Reading Second Noble, Ambitioso, and Gentleman is...
Mark in the Midwest United States.
Reading Spurio and Second Officer is...
Hi, I'm Eric. I have a coffee and a Snickers bar, but I don't want to share.
We are not affiliated to any specific chocolate brands. Other chocolate bars are available. And reading Duchess, First Officer is...
Connor in London.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading Second Servant at some point. I don't know why. I'm considering how many servants. I'm sure somebody else could probably read it, but I've given it to myself for some reason. Anyway, without further ado, we're going to dive into Act 2, Scene 2. Enter Lussurioso with Hippolito.
I much applaud thy judgment. Thou art well read in thy fellows, and 'tis the deepest art to study man. I know this, which I never learnt in schools, the world's divided into knaves and fools.
Knave in your face, my lord, behind your back.
And I much thank thee that thou hast preferred a fellow of discourse well mingled, and whose brain time hath seasoned.
True, my lord. We shall find season once, I hope, oh villain, to make such an unnatural slave of me. But...
Mass, here he comes.
Oh, and now I shall have free leave to depart.
Your absence? Leave us?
Are my thoughts not true? I must remove, but brother, you may stay. Part, we are both made bawds a newfound way.
Exit Hippolito. Vindice has already entered.
Now we're an even number. A third man's dangerous, especially her brother. Say, be free, have I pleasure toward...
Oh, my lord.
Ravish me in thine answer. Art thou rare? Hast thou beguiled her of salvation, and rubbed hell o'er with honey? Is she a woman?
In all but in desire.
Then she's in nothing. I bait in courage now.
The words I brought might well have made indifferent honest naught. A right good woman in these days is changed into white money with less labor far. Many a maid has turned to Mahomet with easier working. I durst undertake upon the pawn and forfeit of my life with half those words to flat a Puritan's wife. But she is close and good. Yet 'tis a doubt by this time. Oh, the mother, the mother.
I never thought their sex had been a wonder until this minute. What fruit from the mother?
Now must I blister my soul be forsworn, or shame the woman that received me first. I will be true, thou liv'st not to proclaim. Spoke to a dying man, shame has no shame. My lord.
Who's that?
Here's none but I, my lord.
What should thy haste utter?
Comfort.
Welcome.
The maid, being dull, having no mind to travel into unknown lands, what did I straight but set spurs to the mother? Golden spurs. Will put her to a false gallop in a trice.
Is't possible that in this the mother should be damned before the daughter?
Oh, that's good manners, my lord. The mother for her age must go foremost, you know.
Thou spoke that true. But where comes in this comfort?
In a fine place, my lord. The unnatural mother did with her tongue so hard beset her honor, that the poor fool was struck to silent wonder. Yet still the maid, like an unlighted taper, was cold and chaste, save that her mother's breath did blow fire on her cheeks. The girl departed, but the good ancient madam, half mad, threw me these promising words, which I took deeply note of. My lord shall be most welcome.
Faith, I thank her.
When his pleasure conducts him this way,
That shall be soon, in faith.
I will sway mine own.
She does the wiser. I commend her for it.
Women with women can work best alone.
By this light, so they can. Give them their due. Men are not comparable to them.
No, that's true. For you shall have one woman knit more in an hour than any man can ravel again in 27 years.
Now my desires are happy. I'll make 'em free men now. Thou'rt a precious fellow. Faith, I love thee. Be wise and make it thy revenue. Beg. Beg. What office couldst thou be ambitious for?
Office, my lord. Marry, if I might have my wish, I would have one that was never begged yet.
Nay, then thou canst have none.
Yes, my lord, I could pick out another office yet. Nay, and keep a horse and drab upon it.
Prithee, good bluntness, tell me.
Why, I would desire but this, my lord, to have all the fees behind the arras and all the farthingales that plump about 12 o'clock at night upon the rushes.
Thou art a mad apprehensive knave. Dost think to make any great purchase of that?
Oh, 'tis an unknown thing, my lord. I wonder 'thas been missed so long.
Well, this night I'll visit her, and 'tis till then a year in my desires. Farewell, attend. Trust me with thy preferment.
And exit Lussurioso.
My loved lord. Oh, shall I kill him on the wrong side now? No. Sword, thou wast never a backbiter yet. I'll pierce him to his face. He shall die looking upon me. Thy veins are swelled with lust. This shall unfill 'em. Great men were gods if beggars could not kill 'em. Forgive me, heaven, to call my mother wicked. Oh, lessen not my days upon the earth. I cannot honor her. By this, I fear me, her tongue has turned my sister into use. I was a villain not to be forsworn to this our lecherous Hope, the Duke's son. For lawyers, merchants, some divines, and all count beneficial perjury a small sin. It shall go hard yet, but I'll guard her honor and keep the ports sure.
And enter Hippolito.
Brother, how goes the world? I would know news of you, but I have news to tell you.
What, in the name of knavery?
Knavery, faith. This vicious old duke's worthily abused. The pen of his bastard writes him cuckold.
His bastard?
Pray believe it. He and the Duchess, by night, meet in their linen. They have been seen by starefoot panders.
Oh, sin foul and deep. Great faults are winked at when the Duke's asleep. See, here comes the Spurio.
Monstrous Luxor.
Unbraced. 2 of his valiant bawds with him. Oh, there's a wicked whisper. Hell's in his ear. Stay, let's observe his passage.
Oh, but are you sure on it?
My lord,
Lord.
most sure on it. But 'twas spoke by one that is most inward with the Duke's son's lust, that he intends within this hour to steal unto Hippolito's sister, whose chaste life the mother has corrupted for his use.
Sweet words, sweet occasion. Faith then, brother, I'll disinherit you in as short time as when I was begotten haste. I'll damn you at your pleasure, precious deed after your lust. Oh, 'twill be fine to bleed. Come, let our passing out be soft and wary.
Exeunt, Spurio and servant.
Mark, there, that step. Now to the Duchess. This their second meeting writes the Duke cuckold with new additions, his horns newly revived. Knight, thou that look'st like funeral herald's fees, torn down betimes in the morning, thou hang'st fitly to grace those sins that have no grace at all. Now 'tis full sea abed over the world. There's juggling of all sides. Some that were maids e'en at sunset are now perhaps in the toll book. This woman in immodest thin apparel lets in her friend by water. Here's a dame, cunning nails leather hinges to a door to avoid proclamation. Now cuckolds are coining apace, and careful sisters spin that thread in the night that does maintain them and their bawds in the day.
You flow well, brother.
I'm shallow yet, too sparing and too modest. Shall I tell thee? If every trick were told that's dealt tonight, there are few here that would not blush outright.
I'm of that belief too. Who's this comes?
The Duke's son, up so late? Brother, fall back, and you shall learn some mischief. My good lord.
But we'll pause there. Lussurioso has already entered at this point, and we have some more. So I feel we've sort of got back into the flow. I think as we sort of into the gambits, the actions, the plays that Vindice is sort of actively running here, seeing how people are reacting, setting them up for falls. It's interesting, that sort of back and forth. I do like this idea that Vindice is sort of he's sort of just doing poetry, and it's just like Hippolito's going, yeah, that's some good beats you got there. That's bouncing along nicely. There's something very nicely meta about that, of just going, your verse is very good today. That's some excellent work there. There is something deliberately over the top and artificial about elements of this, that it's very self-knowing in that way. Thoughts in the room, from people plotting things to people not realizing that things are being plotted at them. Yes, there's a lot of plotting going at you, or testing of the waters. Thoughts? Who wants to leap in? Someone, I'm sure, wants to leap in. Otherwise, I keep sort of vamping here, as it were. Apace.
I've just fallen in love with a few words. Starefoot pandas. Fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
There's a painter who does only paintings of servants listening in. It's a Dutch painter, and there was an exhibition at the National Portrait Gallery. This thing of people listening behind an arras or up a staircase. Absolutely love those three words.
Yes, and of course, just for listeners at home, that's pandas rather than pandas, in the sense that we're not talking about creeping bears downstairs. That's not what's going on. I'm sure our very learned audience know that. Alan?
I'm sure the black and white ones will be more fun. Seem to be some odd word choices in here, and I'm just wondering whether there's transmission errors with some. There was a thing there about cunning nails, leather hinges to a door, which made no sense to me.
The adjective comes after the noun. It's a dame cunning instead of a cunning dame. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I mean, there are occasional very minor artifacts, but they are mostly to do with placement of stage directions. Some of the lineation is slightly different depending on which version you're looking at. I haven't noticed anything particularly large. It's just the syntax that Middleton likes. Aliki.
Yeah, I was thinking about that leather hinges to a door. Would that be about silence? Whereas
Mhm.
metal hinges might creak if
Mhm.
you put in leather hinges.
Mhm.
I think that's very, very, very plausible. Other thoughts? Connor.
Yeah, I just love the way the play just cracks on with it. You can come in and not really understand what's going on, and within one scene, that's it. You're, oh, I'm up to date. This is great. This is really easy.
It's
And I
designed
just
for latecomers, isn't it?
it's definitely, that's it. The entrance. Oh, I've missed everything, but no, you're up to date. It's great. But yeah, and I just Vindice as a character. I love just yeah. Just
Cool.
give him all the audience to play with. It's just a gift of a part.
Okay, so we've got various people flowing in and out, and so yeah, it's a very flowy scene because we stop mid scene. Vindice is sort of standing in the center, like Alice on the chessboard, and everyone's moving around her. So Eric.
I was just going to say that I find it interesting that Vindice sort of goes, yeah, by this I fear me her tongue has turned my sister to use, and like sort of we know, having read / seen the previous parts of Act 1 and Act 2, we kind of know that Castilla was very, very insistent on like not giving in to this situation. So it's kind of like, is it just like his sort of, well, there's an observation bias to this, or what? Is that his concept of like, there, if I'm here, they probably are just insisting that it's fine, or that kind of thing. I don't know.
Well, I think it might be more about the they are deliberately spreading falsehoods to see how people are reacting, and unfortunately, but sometimes you make things true, so it might be that kind of logic. I'm not sure because I wasn't there, so I can't remember, and I'm trying to not confuse the issue. Lynn.
I think Vindice can't really come back to Lussurioso and say, I failed, I couldn't talk her into it. He's got to say, oh, she didn't want to, but her mother's going to talk, her mother will convince her. And then he kind of has to decide what he's going to do to cut that off somehow. I think he plans to assassinate Lussurioso before he can do anything. But I mean, he can't just say, oh, yeah, it's not going to work out, she won't do it. You can't do that. So, I mean, the mother may have bullied her daughter into consenting, but I think Vindice makes it clear he's not going to let it happen.
He won't let it happen, but he's afraid it will. I mean, he's afraid that the sister will be swayed, whether it happens or not. He's afraid for her decision.
That's the problem with putting this kind of plot in motion, is that like, because of course he did discuss earlier whether he should just stab him in the back now, and it was like, shall I do it now? Because it's like, he had the opportunity. He could probably just kill all these people in a very straightforward fashion, very easily, and he keeps not doing that. Aliki.
There would be no play if he.
Yes.
I mean, to give him the benefit of the doubt instead of just going, yeah, there would be no play. This is, okay, it's a bit of a cliche to set up kind of early modern courts as being like a criminal family, but this is basically like a criminal family. The rule of law doesn't operate. The Duke's power seems to be absolute, so he would be in significant danger of getting killed if he started randomly stabbing them. Whereas if he's clever, he might maybe survive long enough to kill lots of them.
Okay, well, we paused as Lussurioso had come back in and once again talks to Vindice, thinking he is somebody else, because of course Vindice is in disguise, as it were. So, Lussurioso, you've been addressed, my good lord.
Yato, why, the man I wished for. Come, I do embrace this season for the fittest to taste of that young lady.
Heart and hell.
Damned villain.
I have no way now to cross it but to kill him.
Come, only thou and I.
My lord, my lord.
Why dost thou start us?
I'd almost forgot. The bastard.
What of him?
This night, this hour, this minute now.
What? What?
Shadows the Duchess.
Horrible word.
And, like strong poison, eats into the Duke your father's forehead.
Oh.
He makes Horn Royal.
Most ignoble slave.
This is the fruit of 2 beds.
Mad.
That passage he trod warily,
He did.
and hushed his villains every step he took.
His villains. I'll confound them.
Take him finely now.
The Duchess' chamber door shall not control me.
And exit Vindice and Lussurioso.
Good, happy, swift. There's gunpowder in the court, wildfire at midnight. In this heedless fury, he may show violence to cross himself. I'll follow the event.
And we can further exit. Some people place a scene break here, but we're going to let the narrative flow on and see how that goes. Enter Lussurioso and Vindice.
Where is that villain?
Softly, my lord, and you may take him twisted.
I care not how.
Oh, 'twill be glorious. To kill 'em doubled when they're heaped. Be soft, my lord.
Oh, hey, my spleen is not so lazy. Thus and thus, I'll shake their eyelids open with my sword, shut them again forever. Then, strumpet!
And enter Duke and Duchess.
You, upper guard, defend us.
Treason! Treason!
Oh, take me not in sleep. I have great sins. I must have days, nay, months, dear son, with the penitential heaves to lift them out, and not to die unclear. Oh, thou wilt kill me both in heaven and in here.
I am amazed to death.
Nay, villain, traitor, worse than the foulest epithet. Now I'll gripe thee e'en with the nerves of wrath, and throw thy head amongst the loyal guard.
Enter nobles and Duchess's sons, Ambitioso and Supervacuo.
How come the quiet of your grace disturbed?
This boy that should be myself after me would buy myself before me, and in heat of that ambition bloodily rushed in, intending to depose me in my bed.
Duty and natural loyalty forfend.
He called his father villain, and me strumpet, a word that I abhorred to file my lips with.
That was not so well done, brother.
I am abused. I know there's no excuse can do me good.
It is now good policy to be from sight. His vicious purpose to our sister's honor, I crossed beyond our thought.
Hippolito?
Sorry. I looked, I didn't see myself. Ambitioso Duke.
You little dreamt. Should probably be an aside. You little dreamt his father slept here, says Hippolito.
Thank you.
Oh, 'twas far beyond me. But since it fell so, without frightful words, would he had killed him. 'Twould have eased our swords.
Be comforted, our Duchess. He shall die.
Where's this slave pander now? Out of mine eye, guilty of this abuse.
And exits Spurio with his villains. Vindice and Hippolito were dissembling a fight earlier. A flight, rather. Anyway, Spurio exits with his villains, apparently. Hang on, that makes no sense.
He
Enter. Yes,
enters.
enter. I didn't say... Did I say exit? I apologise. Enter Spurio with his chaps.
You're villains, fablers. You have knaves' chins and harlots' tongues. You lie, and I will damn you with 1 meal a day.
Oh, good my lord!
Splud, you shall never stop.
That's me. Oh, I beseech you, sir.
This is why bad service. To let my sword catch cold so long and miss him.
Suppose my lord was his intent to meet there.
Heart, easy yonder. What news here? Is the day at the socket that is noon at midnight? The cord up. How comes the guard so saucy with his elbows?
Stood here. Nay, then, the my hand shout, my lord, hear me.
Bear him hence.
I can with loyalty excuse.
Excuse, to prison with the villain. Death shall not long lag after him.
Good faith, then 'tis not much amiss.
Brothers, my best release lies on your tongues, I pray. Persuade for me.
It is our duties. Make yourself sure of us.
We'll sweat in pleading.
And I may live to thank you.
And exit Lussurioso.
No, thy death shall thank me better.
He's gone. I'll after him and know his trespass. Leave to bear part in all his ills, but with a Puritan.
Exit Spurio with his servants.
Now, brother, let our hate and love be woven so subtly together that in speaking one word for his life, we may make three for his death. The craftiest pleader gets most gold for breath.
Set on. I'll not be far behind you, brother.
Is possible a son should be disobedient as far as the sword? It is the highest. He can go no further.
My gracious lord, take pity.
Pity, boys.
Nay, we'd be loath to move your grace too much. We know the trespass is unpardonable, black, wicked, and unnatural.
Son? Oh, monstrous.
Yet, my lord, a duke's soft hand strokes the rough head of law and makes it lie more smooth.
But my hand shall ne'er do it.
That as you please, my lord.
We must needs confess, some fathers would have entered into hate, so deadly pointed that before his eyes he would have seen the execution sound without corrupted favour.
But, my lord, your grace may live the wonder of all times in pardoning that offence, which never yet had face to beg a pardon.
How's this?
Forgive him, good my lord. He's your own son, and I must needs say 'twas the viler done.
He's the next heir. Yet this true reason gathers, none can possess that dispossess their fathers. Be merciful.
Here's no stepmother's wit. I'll try them both upon their love and hate.
Be merciful, although...
You have prevailed. My wrath, like flaming wax, hath spent itself. I know 'twas some peevish moon in him. Go, let him be released.
Soot! How now, brother?
Your grace doth please to speak beside your spleen. I would it were so happy.
Why, go, release him.
Oh, good my lord! I know the fault's too weighty and full of general loathing, too inhuman, rather by all men's voices, worthy death.
Two. Here, then, receive this signet, doom shall pass. Direct it to the judges. He shall die ere many days. Make haste.
All speed that may be. We could have wished his burden not so sore. We knew your grace did but delay before.
Exeunt Ambitioso and Supervacuo.
Here's envy with a poor thin covert, like scarlet hid in lawn, easily spied through. 'Tis their ambition by the mother's side is dangerous, and for safety must be purged. I will prevent their envies, sure it was but some mistaken fury in our son, which these aspiring boys would climb upon. He shall be released suddenly.
Enter Nuble.
Good morning to your grace.
Welcome, my lords.
Our knees shall take away the office of our feet forever, unless your grace bestow a father's eye upon the clouded fortunes of your son, and in compassionate virtue grant him that which makes e'en mean men happy, liberty.
How seriously their loves and honours woo for that which I am about to pray them do. Arise, my lords. Your knees signed his release. We freely pardon him.
We owe your grace much thanks, and he much duty.
Everybody exits apart from the Duke.
It well becomes that judge to nod at crimes that does commit greater himself and lives. I may forgive a disobedient error that expect pardon for adultery, and in my old days am a youth in lust. Many a beauty have I turned to poison in the denial, covetous of all. Age hot is like a monster to be seen. My hairs are white, and yet my sins are green.
Exit Duke. End of act. So yes, it's busy. Serious bits of business, and some editors split. I think we don't actually have scene divisions in a lot of this play. We have sort of act divisions, and so there is this question about precisely how the transition works between a potential scene 2 into scene 3, and precisely how the Lussurioso going for the Duke and Duchess is actually staged. So I've got some different inferred stage directions in different editions, so it's quite interesting how different people interpret how that functions. But effectively, in a sense, the impulse of Lussurioso going to uncover what he thinks is going on in the other room, and then finding, oh no, actually no, they're actually the married people are together. Oh dear, this is not a good look. I'll go to Lynn then Alan.
I love the plotting here. It's like, oh, what are we going to do? How are we going to prevent Lussurioso from basically ravaging her sister? And then they find this out right in the right nick of time, right? That Spurio is having an affair with the Duchess. Is like, oh, we can distract Lussurioso by telling him this, but then it turns out they're not together that night. I like it. I think it's hilarious. It's also, I'm sorry, hilarious that when the Lussurioso bursts into the Duchess's bedroom and the Duke knows he's in danger, the first thing he says is, "Don't kill me right now. I haven't been to confession in forever, and I got a lot to talk about."
Yeah, everybody in this play, you give me an hour.
At least, right? And it comes back to that at the end. So there's a circularity in that scene. It's like, yeah, I know I'm a bad person. It's so weird. It's also really weird that he's already decided, no, I'm not going to execute my own son. This is a one-off. It won't happen again. And then, like, 2 random noblemen come in and say, oh, don't execute your son. Like, that's so unnecessary. I'm just wondering what that's about.
I'll go to Brown on that point before I go to Alan and then Aliki.
Just quickly, I'm sure that this probably came up last time too. I'm just curious, in performance, I guess one of the decisions must be how funny to let it be, because there's so many things that are clearly funny as you read them, like the transparency of the 2 stepsons here. Going on one side, saying one thing, but then being caught up and suddenly having to backpedal. It's so transparent with the names Ambitioso and Supervacuo. I assume we're meant to laugh quite often.
Yes,
I that's something to think about.
I think that's absolutely fair. I mean, I think that the point about these kind of plays where they do invite laughter is that those invitations are there, but they shouldn't be played, if that makes sense. And there's a balancing act to be had as to how much you're getting laughter out of people. Though some characters may be more silly than others, and there is a game to be played in terms of what effect you're actually trying to play for. And it does make a big difference as well about signposting that you're lying to an audience. If you don't signpost clearly enough to an audience that you are lying at a certain point, then sometimes the audience don't actually realise, and you do actually have to do that if you want to get the effect of laughter, to get an audience to laugh along with that. So that's an important element as well. Alan.
Yeah, I mean that sequence we've done there, I think there are at least 3 different locus of operation happening there, which I would have thought should be separate scenes.
There are 2 locuses. but it depends on whether they exit and the Duke comes running on, out, or whether they effectively enter the room that he's in. That's the question in terms of how you stage that. But it isn't actually very clear as to how that functions, if that makes sense. Aliki, then Susan, then Connor.
So I've only really worked on one revenge tragedy before with this group. We did the Duchess of Malfi recently, and that was really psychologically realistic. This seems to me to not be. Despite characters telling us their inner thoughts all the time, I don't believe their inner thoughts. I really don't think that a randy old man who's after all the girls and poisoning the ones who say no is like, oh, it's so much worse to be randy when you're old and powerful. Nah, I don't buy it.
Susan.
Absolutely, Aliki. I quite agree. And I found it incredibly hard to keep the engine of that character going through that scene, just as an actor. Wow, that is tricky. I mean, are all those coming in very fast, those cues? I mean, I know we had it's not that. It's the length of time that you're keeping that energy going. Is it just me, or that really was tough? Maybe it's to do with not being truthful, as Aliki suggested. I couldn't find a truthful path through that other than just keeping the engine going.
Yes, I mean, there is a fundamental difference between what, because Malfi is sort of this world that closes in and closes in and closes in. And yes, there are absurd elements to it, but actually it's all very believable. Whereas this, I don't feel entrapped by this court. This court isn't entrapping us in a claustrophobic way. It's more a strange funhouse of terrible, terrible people. Connor.
I love the ending, the Duke's last speech, how it echoes the element of Vindice's opening prologue, where Vindice says, like, beware old men hot and vicious, aging as in golden lust is covetous. And just saying how he poisoned his wife, and then the Duke just says, "Yeah, I'm a dodgy old man that has been lusting after women and poisoning them, and just the way it is." I just love the language of this play. I think is beautiful. There's so many parts that echo one another and reconfirm the character, and I don't think the characters are meant to be played truthfully. I think it is just meant to be OTT and absurd, whereas Webster is very psychologically truthful. I think this play is just play it for what it is. That's what makes it so fun.
Yes, I mean, there's a question of what we mean by truth here, and what performance styles and how they function. We can be a bit, we got perhaps be a bit more careful, but we shall see what comes out as we go into Act 3, Scene 1. So we have the wonderful duo return. Enter Ambitioso and Supervacuo.
Brother, let my opinion sway you once. I speak it for the best to have him die. Surest and soonest, if the signet come unto the judge's hand, why then his doom will be deferred till sittings and court days, juries and farther. Faiths are bought and sold. Oaths in these days are but the skin of gold.
In troth, 'tis true too.
Then let's set by the judges and vault the officers. 'Tis but mistaking the Duke our father's meaning, and where he named ere many days, 'tis but forgetting that. Have him die in the morning.
Excellent! Then am I heir. Duke in a minute.
He were once puffed out. Here is a pin. Should quickly prick your bladder.
Blessed occasion. He being packed will have some trick and wile to wind our younger brother out of prison that lies in for the rape. The lady's dead. People's thoughts will soon be buried.
We may be safety do it, and live and feed. Duchess's sons are too proud to bleed.
We are, if faith to say true. Come, let's not linger. Out to the officers. Go you before, and set an edge upon the executioner.
Let me alone to grind him.
Exit Supervacuo.
Farewell. I am next now. I rise just in that place, for thou art out off. Upon thy neck, kind brother, the falling of one head lifts up another.
And exit Ambitioso. So these are nice people. They're very respectable. Good planning here. Good forward. Nothing can go wrong with any of these plots here. And also, I mean, there's something about Ambitioso when he's making this thing about, hey, we can do some reputation management, because the victim of my horrible of our crimes is dead now. So people will forget. It's not like they're lingering around reminding everyone of the terrible crimes we've been committing. That's fine. We can do an interview on the with a celebrity and say how sorry we were, and it will all be fine. No, everyone forget that. And I'm sort of yeah. Quite depressing. Any thoughts on this very short scene? Anyone leap in, Lynn?
Yeah, I think that the observation that it's not psychologically realistic is legit. I mean, that's obviously, I certainly agree with that. But there's some like social and political truths going on here. When when Ambitioso says, our brother's rape victim is dead now, people will forget eventually. He's not wrong. He's not wrong. I had a friend years back who was he was an attorney, and he basically did personal injury defense. And it's like, he's like, yeah, it's good when the victim is dead, and not just it's good for the plaintiff if the victim is actually not there, instead of like showing up in court, disfigured or disabled. The jury tends to be sympathetic to a victim they can see. So yeah, that's the social reality. If the victim is gone, public opinion tends to just sort of dissipate.
Yeah, and it is again, we're getting down to that question of performance style and what you're aiming for here is there are different kinds of performances that you're aiming for that will have different effects and have different purposes. Doesn't mean that there aren't truths in this. It's a different kind of truth that we might be talking about, and that's why the truth is such a slippery term to be using, because it can mean different things depending on which context we're using it in. So let's run the next couple of scenes into each other, because the next one is blink and you'll miss it. Act 3, Scene 2. Enter with the nobles Lussurioso from prison.
My lords, I am so much indebted to your loves for this delivery.
But our duties, my lord, unto the hopes that grow in you.
If e'er I live to be myself, I'll thank you. Oh, liberty, thou sweet and heavenly dame. But hell for prison is too mild a name.
And they exit Act 3, Scene 3. Enter Ambitioso and Supervacuo with officers.
Officers, here's the Duke's signet. Your firm warrant brings the command of present death along with it unto our brother, the Duke's son. We are sorry that we are so unnaturally employed in such an unkind office, fitter far for enemies than brothers.
But the Duke's command must be obeyed. Then, first officer. I must and shall, my lord. This morning, then. So suddenly.
Aye, alas, poor good soul. He must breakfast betimes. The executioner stands ready to put forth his cowardly valor.
Already?
Already, faith. Oh, sir, destruction highs, and that is least imprudent. Soonest dies.
Eric, read the first officer. You can be both of them.
Troth, you say true. My lord, we take our leaves. Our office shall be sound. We'll not delay the third part of a minute.
Therein you show yourselves good men and upright officers. Pray, let him die as private as he may. Do him that favor, for the gaping people will but trouble him at his prayers, and make him curse and swear, and so die black. Will you be so far kind?
It shall be done, my lord.
Why, we do thank you. If we live to be, you shall have a better office.
Your good lordship.
And commend us to the scaffold in our tears.
We'll weep and do your commendations.
Exhumed officers.
Fine fools in office.
Things fall out so fit.
So happily come, brother. Ere next clock, his head will be made serve a bigger block.
And they exit. We'll go straight into Act 3, Scene 4. Enter in prison junior brother and keeper.
Keeper,
My lord.
no news lately from our brothers? Are they unmindful of us?
My lord, a messenger came newly in and brought this from him.
Nothing but paper comforts. I looked for my delivery before this. Had they been worth of their oaths, prithee, be from us.
Exit keeper.
Now, what say you, forsooth? Speak out, I pray. Brother, be of good cheer. Slut, it begins like a whore with good cheer. Thou shalt not be long a prisoner, not 35 years, like a bankrupt. I think so. We have thought upon a device to get thee out by a trick. By a trick, poxy a trick. And it be so long a playing as so rest comforted. Be merry and expect it suddenly. Be merry? Hang merry? Draw and quarter merry? I'll be mad. It's not strange that a man should lie in a whole month for a woman. Well, we shall see how sudden our brothers will be in their promise. I will expect still a trick. I shall not be long a prisoner. How now? What news?
Enter keeper.
Bad news, my lord. I am discharged of you.
Slave, canst thou that bad news? I thank you, brothers.
My lord will prove so. Here come the officers, into whose hands I must commit you.
Ha! Officers, what? Why?
Enter officers.
You must pardon us, my lord. Our office must be sound. Here is our warrant, the signet from the Duke. You must straight suffer.
Suffer? I'll suffer you begone. I'll suffer you to come no more. What would you have me suffer?
My lord, those words were better changed to prayers. The time's but brief with you, prepare to die.
Sure, 'tis not so.
It is too true, my lord.
I tell you 'tis not. For the Duke my father deferred me till next sitting, and I look in every minute 60 times an hour for a release. A trick wrought by my brothers.
A trick, my lord. If you expect such comfort, your hopes are fruitless as a barren woman. Your brothers were the unhappy messengers that brought this powerful token for your death.
My brothers? No. No!
'Tis most true, my lord.
My brothers to bring a warrant for my death. How strange this shows.
No delaying time.
Desire 'em hither. Call 'em up, my brothers. They shall deny it to your faces.
My lord, they're far enough by this, at least at court. And this most strict commanded they be left behind them. When grief swam in their eyes, they showed like brothers, brimful of heavy sorrow, but the Duke must have his pleasure.
His pleasure?
These were his last words, which my memory bears, command us to the scaffold in our tears.
Pox dry their tears. What should I do with tears? I'd hate 'em worse than any citizen's son can hate salt water. Here came a letter now bleeding from their pen, scarce stinted yet. Would I'd been torn in pieces when I tore it. Look, you officious whoresons, words of comfort, not long a prisoner.
It says true in that, sir, for you must suffer presently.
A villainous duns upon the letter, knave its exposition. Look you then here, sir, we'll get thee out by a trick, says he.
That may hold true, sir, for, a trick is commonly fought with cards, which was meant by our 4 officers.
Worse and worse dealing.
The hour beckons us. The headsman waits. Lift up your eyes to heaven.
I thank you, Faith. Good, pretty, wholesome counsel. I should look up to heaven, as you said, whilst he behind me cozens me of my head. Aye, that's the trick.
You delay too long, my lord.
Stay, good authorities, bastards, since I must through brothers' pendulary die. Oh, let me venom their souls with curses.
'Tis no time to curse.
Must I believe then without respect of sign? Well, my fault was sweet sport, which the world approves. I die for that which every woman loves.
And exit, junior brother. The plot comes to fruition. I think, Lynn, you want to leap in there.
Yeah. Some time ago, we were. I can't even remember the play, but I was sort of defending a bad character, and one of our participants there, Rachel Nicole, said, "He's a rapist. He can eat a butt." It's sort of become more famous in our household. He's a rapist. He can eat a butt. And it's like, Junior, I'm glad you're dying. I'm glad that your brother's trick backfired and that you're dying, because no, women don't. No, you're a rapist. You can die. I'm glad you're dying.
Yes, there are very few people in this play for whom, when they come to die, will be going, what a shame.
Yeah, and this scene really takes a long time. Like the officers telling him, no, really, you've got to die. I wonder why and what the effect of that is, and should it be trimmed down? That's another thing I noticed. It goes on a while.
Aliki.
Enjoyment in their pain. Yeah. Enjoyment watching.
Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal in an unrehearsed cold reading, but you could have so much to do with that scene. You could have so much fun as an actor with that scene. As he realizes and doesn't realize it. No, look, it says here, God damn it, it's all torn up. That would be great.
Yeah, because you've got to, he sort of starts off with all this entitlement. I've got this letter, and he's going, oh, really? I'm supposed to be happy about this? And it's like, do you not know who I am? So there is a lot at play there. I mean, we could argue all sorts of questions about the nature of justice, and surely the justice should have been done in a proper fashion at the beginning of the play, which would have been nice, as opposed to this sort of extrajudicial process that's going on here. But the whole court is obviously corrupt, and maybe this is the only way. But we're not going to bother. We just want him dead, so that's fine. Any other thoughts?
New bleeding from their pens. I love that.
Yeah. Great. It's so great.
Yeah, we've got lots of little backs and forths again throughout all of this. And these very short scenes. Someone getting freed, someone think they're going to get freed, and so lots of little, actually relatively short scenes, intermingled as well there, as a slightly longer. Alan.
Yeah, in that letter reading scene. Very difficult to do on a cold read, because I think pretty well every other line.
Yes, no, it is.
It's actually an aside.
Yeah, no, he's reading the letter and then he's not reading. He's reacting to reading the letter. Yes, again, it's kind of thing to just leave in the chat. Act 3, Scene 5. Enter Vindice and Hippolito for, I'm sure, some sort of general briefing as to how the plotting's going.
Oh, sweet, delectable, rare, happy, ravishing.
Hey, what's the matter, brother?
Oh, 'tis able to make a man spring up and knock his forehead against yon silver ceiling.
Really? Tell me. Why may I not partake with you? You vowed once to give me a share to every tragic thought.
By mass, I think I did too. Then I'll divide it to thee. The old Duke, thinking my outward shape and inward heart are cut of one piece, for he that prates his secrets, his heart stands the outside, hires me by price to greet him with a lady in some fit place, veiled from the eyes of the court, some darkened, blushless angle, that is guilty of his forefathers' lust and great folks' riots, to which I easily, to maintain my shape, consented, and did wish his impudent grace to meet her here, in this unsunned lodge, wherein 'tis night at noon, and here the rather because unto the torturing of his soul the bastard and the Duchess have appointed their meeting too in this luxurious circle, which most afflicting sight will kill his eyes before we kill the rest of him.
Will, infaced, most dreadfully digested. I see not how you could have missed me, brother.
True, but the violence of my joy forgot it.
Aye, but where is the lady now?
Oh, at that word I'm lost again. You cannot find me yet. I'm in a throng of happy apprehensions. He's suited for a lady. I have took care for a delicious lip, a sparkling eye. You shall be witness, brother. Be ready. Stand with your hat off.
Exit Vindice.
Troth, I wonder what lady it should be. 'Tis no wonder, now I think again, to have a lady stoop to a duke that stoops unto his men. 'Tis common to be common through the world, and there's more private common shadowing vices than those who are known both by their names and prices. 'Tis part of my allegiance to stand bare to the duke's concubine, and here she comes.
Enter Vindice with the skull of his love, dressed up in tires, costumed and masked.
Madam, his grace will not be absent long. Secret? Ne'er doubt us, madam, 'twill be worth 3 velvet gowns to your ladyship. Known, few ladies respect that disgrace, a poor thin shell. 'Tis the best grace you have to do it well. I'll save your hand that labor. I'll unmask you.
And unmasks the skull.
Sir!
Art thou beguiled now? Tut, a lady can, as thus all hid, beguile a wiser man. Have I not fitted the old surfetter with a quaint piece of beauty? Age and bare bone are e'er allied in action. Here's an eye able to tempt a great man to serve God. A pretty hanging lip that has forgot now how to dissemble. Methinks this mouth should make a swearer tremble, a drunkard clasp his teeth and not undo 'em, to suffer wet damnation to run through 'em. Here's a cheek keeps her color. Let the wind go whistle. Spout rain, we fear thee not, be hot or cold, all's one with us. And is not he absurd, whose fortunes are upon their faces set, that fear no other god but wind and wet?
Brother, you've spoken that right. Is this the form that living shone so bright?
The very same. And now methinks I could e'en chide myself for doting on her beauty, though her death shall be revenged after no common action. Does the silkworm expend her yellow labors for thee? For thee does she undo herself? Are lordships sold to maintain ladyships for the poor benefit of a bewitching minute? Why does yon fellow falsify highways and put his life between the judge's lips to refine such a thing, keeps horse and men to beat their valors for her? Surely we are all mad people, and they whom we think we are not, whom we think are not. We mistake those. 'Tis we are mad in sense, they but in clothes.
Faith, and in clothes too, we give us our due.
Does every proud and self-affecting dame campfire her face for this, and grieve her maker in sinful baths of milk, when many an infant starves for her superfluous outside, all for this? Who now bids 20 pounds a night, prepares music, perfumes, and sweetmeats? All are hushed. Thou mayest lie chaste now. It were fine, methinks, to have thee seen at revels, forgetful feasts, and unclean brothels. Sure, 'twould fright the sinner and make him a good coward, put a reveler out of his antic amble, and cloy an epicure with empty dishes. Here might a scornful and ambitious woman look through and through herself. See, ladies, what false forms you deceive men, but cannot deceive worms. Now to my tragic business. Look you, brother, I have not fashioned this only for show and useless property. No, it shall bear a part even in its own revenge. This very skull, whose mistress the Duke poisoned with this drug, the mortal curse of the earth shall be revenged in the like strain, and kiss his lips to death. As much as the dumb thing can, he shall feel. What fails in poison will supply in steel.
Brother, I do applaud thy constant vengeance, the quaintness of thy malice, above thought.
Yes, and Vindice applies, or it is inferred, applies poison to the skull at this point, maybe not.
So, 'tis laid on. Now come and welcome, Duke, I have her for thee. I protested, brother, methinks she makes almost as fair a sin as some old gentlewoman in a periwig. Hide thy face now for shame. Thou hadst need have a mask now. 'Tis vain when beauty flows, but when it fleets, this would become graves better than the streets.
You have my voice in that. Hark, the Duke comes.
Peace, let's observe what company he brings, and how he does absentum, for you know he'll wish all private. Brother, fall you back a little with the bony lady.
That I will.
So. Now 9 years' vengeance crowd into a minute.
And the Duke and some nobles have entered the scene.
You shall have leave to leave us. With this charge upon your lives, if we be missed by the Duchess or any of the nobles to give out, we're privately rid forth.
Oh, happiness.
With some few honourable gentlemen, you may say, you may name those that are away from court.
Your will and pleasure shall be done, my lord.
And exit the gentleman.
Privately rid forth. He strives to make sure work on it. Your good grace.
Pietro, well done. Has brought her? What lady is't?
Faith, my lord, a country lady, a little bashful at first, as most of them are, but after the first kiss, my lord, the worst is past with them. Your grace knows now what you have to do. She has somewhat a grave look with her, but...
I love that best. Conduct her.
Have at all.
In gravest looks, the greatest faults seem less. Give me that sin that's robbed in holiness.
Back with the torch. Brother, raise the perfumes.
How sweet can a duke breathe? Age has no fault. Pleasure should meet in a perfumed mist. Lady, sweetly encountered, I came from court. I must be bold with you. Oh, what's this? Oh!
Royal villain! White devil!
Oh!
Brother, place the torch here, that his affrighted eyeballs may start into those hollows. Duke, dost know yon dreadful vizard? View it well. 'Tis the skull of Gloriana, whom thou poisonedst last.
Oh! 'Tis poisoned me.
Didst not know that till now.
What are you two?
Villains all three. The very ragged bone has been sufficiently revenged.
Oh, Hippolito, call treason.
Yes, my lord, treason, treason, treason.
So saying stamps on him.
Then I'm betrayed.
Alas, poor lecher, in the hands of knaves. A slavish duke is baser than his slaves.
My teeth are eaten out.
Hadst any left?
I think but few.
Then those that did are eaten.
Oh, my tongue.
Your tongue. 'Twill teach yon to kiss closer, not like a slobbering Dutchman. You have eyes still. Look, monster, what a lady hast thou made me, my once betrothed wife.
Is it thou, villain? Nay, then.
'Tis I! 'Tis Vindice! 'Tis I!
And let this comfort thee. Our lord and father fell sick upon the infection of thy frowns, and died in sadness. Be that thy hope of life.
He had his tongue, yet grief made him die speechless. 'Tis but early yet. Now I'll begin to stick thy soul with ulcers. I will make thy spirit grievous sore. It shall not rest, but like some pestilent man toss in thy breast. Mark me, Duke, thou art a renowned, high and mighty cuckold. Thy bastard rides a hunting in thy brow.
Millions of deaths.
Nay, to afflict thee more, here in this lodge they meet for damned clips. Those eyes shall see the incest of their lips.
Is there a hell besides this, villains?
Villain! Nay, heaven is just. Scorns are the hires of scorns. I ne'er knew yet adulterer without horns.
Once, ere they die, 'tis quitted.
Hark the music! Their banquet is prepared. They are coming.
Oh, kill me not with that sight.
Thou shalt not lose that sight for all thy dukedom.
Traitors, murderers.
What, is not thy tongue eaten out yet? Then we'll invent a silence. Brother, stifle the torch.
Treason, murder.
Nay, faith, we'll have you hushed. Now with thy dagger nail down his tongue, and mine shall keep possession about his heart. If he but gasp, he dies. We dread not death to quittance injuries. Brother, if he but wink, not brooking the foul object, let our two other hands tear up his lids and make his eyes like comets shine through blood. When the bad bleeds, then is the tragedy good.
Whist, brother, music's at our ear, they come.
Enter the bastard, Spurio meeting the Duchess.
Had not that kiss a taste of sin to her sweet?
Why, there's no pleasure sweet, but it is sinful.
True, such a bitter sweetness fate hath given. Best side to us is the worst side to heaven.
Shh, come, 'tis like the old Duke, thy doubtful father. The thought of him rubs heaven in thy way, but I protest by yonder waxen fire, forget him, or I'll poison him.
Madam, you urge a thought which ne'er had life. So deadly do I loathe him from my birth, that if he took me hasped within his bed, I would add murder to adultery, and with my sword give up his years to death.
Why, now thou art sociable, let's in and feast. Loud music sound, pleasure is banquet's guest.
And exit Duchess and Spurio.
I cannot brook.
The brook is turned to blood.
Thanks to loud music.
'Twas our friend indeed. 'Tis state in music for a duke to bleed. The dukedom wants a head, though yet unknown. As fast as they peep up, let's cut him down.
And exeunt Vindice and Hippolito, and we can infer there is a scene change at this point, which is not listed in the version we have here. All pretty subtle stuff. It's all pretty straightforward. Poison Skull. Dressed up Poison Skull, and as the guy's dying, he gets to watch his wife getting it on. Insult to injury and all the fun thing. It's all a little extra. It's all a little bit extra. But hey, that's how we like it. That's how we like it. That's what we're here for. That's what we paid our penny for. Or two pennies if we're, I suppose, in an indoor playhouse. Anyway, I forget the rate of the general rates we're going on. Thoughts. Say, fun times. I have literally seen this stage with them literally getting it on in front of the dying Duke as well. So not just a little flirtiness, but definitely some panting. Mark.
I love that the Duchess talks about how she'll just poison the Duke while he is dying of poison.
Yep.
Watching them. It's just so good. And
it's a really horribly corrosive poison as well. It's literally eating away at his face. It's grim stuff. Aliki.
Well, some kind of marvelous acid that attacks flesh but not bone. But yeah, okay. So Vindice is really down on other people's pleasures. And I can't help but notice that his own pleasures are extremely unpleasant. I mean, I'm not going to, white knight for rape here. I don't think it's a good thing, but it comes from a relatively at base, from a relatively understandable impulse, sexual desire, ambition, wanting to better yourself in the world, wanting riches, which is all the sins of everybody he hates. Oh, and women who want to be beautiful and are vain about their looks. These are all the things he can't stand, right? But fondling corpses is great. Reveling in terrible suffering, great.
Yeah. He's been thinking about this for 9 years, and I think it might have made him a bit weird, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Lynn.
Yeah, this is the scene where you're like, oh, yeah, he's coming unhinged, or has come on hinge pins. Yeah, but I'm really glad Aliki brought that up, because I mean this scene just like goes so nuts at the end. It's easy to forget some of, again, the great language our lordship sold to maintain ladyships, the poor pleasure of a bewitching minute. I mean, what he's saying is deeply cynical and kind of anti-human, but the language is really great. The way he talks about does the silkworm expend her yellow labors for this? I just think some of those metaphors and some of that imagery is just great.
Rachel, who's joining us in the room, has been lurking all along, and then Connor, and then we will move on.
I'm just a question about staging, because the charming brothers also threatened to put a dagger through the Duke's tongue to extra silence him. So I'm just curious how the Duke keeps speaking with a dagger through his tongue, and how that works.
Yeah, because
I think it's noises, not speaking. There's very few words, but there's a lot of O's. You can have so much fun with those.
Yeah. Connor, then Mark, then we must move on.
I just think it's so clever, going from the point that Lynn was making, the way that Vindice comes across as this completely unhinged character, but he has that beautiful, series of monologues, or however you do it, but where he just really plays with the audience. He switches between speaking to his brother, the skull, and the audience, and it's just that continual switching of who he talks to bring them along, so they're just complicit within the whole thing. So when it comes to the point that Aliki made about this OTT kind of sequence of events in this death, that the audience are just in the palm of his hands, just going, yeah, I get it, I agree, fine, perfect, because that's so how beautiful the language is and how it's done. I think really makes it so special in terms of drama. Anyway, I'm biased.
Mark,
I think following up on Rachel's point, he not only needs to speak a few words, but he needs to speak the last word he says clearly enough, Brooke, that it's clear that Vindice is doing wordplay on the word he just said. And it's like, how do you even say the word Brooke if you can't close your mouth, let alone if you've got a dagger through your tongue? Yeah,
they don't say that they keep
challenge.
it there. They might have pulled it out by that point.
That's true. They exit, pull it out. He says, "I cannot, Brooke." He's fine.
Yeah. I once played a door knocker. I had to speak through with a thing in my mouth. So that's the closest I've come to this kind of technical exercise on stage. You'd be amazed what you can sort out in rehearsal. Anyway, Act 3, we'll call it Scene 6. Enter the Duchess's two sons, Ambitioso and Supervacuo.
Was not this execution rarely plotted? We are the Duke's sons now.
You may thank my policy for that.
Your policy for what?
Why, it was not my invention, brother, to slit the judges. And in lesser compass did I not draw the model of his death, advising you to southern officers and in extemporal execution.
Heart, 'twas a thing I thought on too.
You thought on too? Spurt, slander not your thoughts with glorious untruth. I know 'twas from you.
Sir, I say 'twas in my head.
I like your brains then. They're to come out as long as you lived.
You'd have the honour, forsooth, that your wits led him to the scaffold.
Since it is my due, I'll publish it. I'll add in spite of you.
Methinks you are much too bold. You should a little remember us, brother, next to be the honest duke.
It shall be as easy for you to be duke as to be honest. That's never a faith.
Well, cold he is by this time, and because we're both ambitious, be it our amity, and let the glory be shared equally.
I'm content to that.
This night our younger brother shall out of prison. I have a trick.
A trick? Prithee, what is't?
We'll get him out by a while.
Prithee, what while?
No, sir, you shall not know it till it be done, for then you'd swear 'twere yours.
Ooh, sick burn. Enter an officer.
Now, what's he?
One of the officers.
Desired news?
How now, my friend?
My lords, under your pardon, I am allotted to the desertless office to present to you with yet bleeding head.
Excellent.
All's sure our own. Brother, canst weep, think'st thou? 'Twould grace our flattery much. Think of some dame, 'twill teach thee to dissemble.
I have thought. Now for yourself.
Our sorrows are so fluent, our eyes o'erflow our tongues, words spoken tears are like the murmurs of the waters, the sound is loudly heard, but it cannot be distinguished.
How died he, pray?
Oh, full of rage and spleen.
He died most valiantly then. We're glad to hear it.
We could not woo him once to pray.
He showed himself a gentleman in that. Give him his due.
But in the stead of prayer, he drew forth oaths.
Then did he pray, dear heart, although you understood him not?
My lords, even at his last, with pardon be it spoke, he cursed you both.
He cursed us? Bless good soul.
It was not in our powers, but the Duke's pleasure. Finally dissembled to both sides. Sweet fate. Happy opportunity.
Enter Lussurioso.
Ah! Ah! Ah!
Wait for it. Give Aliki a chance to say the line.
Now, my lords.
Ah! What?
Why do you shun me, brothers? You may come nearer now. The savor of the prison has forsook me. I thank such kind lords as yourselves. I'm free.
Alive?
In health?
Release. We were both even amazed with joy to see it.
I am much to thank to you.
We spared no tongue unto my lord the Duke.
I know your delivery, brother, had not been half so sudden, but for us.
Oh, how he pleaded.
Most deserving brothers. In my best studies, I will think of it.
And exit Lussurioso.
Oh, death and vengeance!
Hell and torment!
Slave, camest thou to delude us?
Delude you, my lords?
Aye, villain, where's his head now?
Why, here, my lord. Just after his delivery, you both came with warrant from the Duke to behead your brother.
Aye, our brother, the Duke's son.
The Duke's son, my lord, had his release the day before you came.
Whose head's that, then?
His whom you left command for? Your own brothers?
Our brothers? Oh, furies! Confusions!
Darkness!
Devils!
Spell it out so accursedly.
So damnedly!
Villain, I'll brain thee with it.
Oh, my good lord!
The devil overtake thee.
Ah, fatal!
Oh, prodigious to our bloods.
Did we dissemble?
Did we make our tears women for thee?
Laugh and rejoice for thee!
bring warrant for thy death.
Mark off thy head!
You had a trick. You had a wile, forsooth.
A Moraine Meadham, there's none of these wiles that ever came to good. I see now there's nothing sure in mortality but mortality. Well, no more words. Shalt be revenged, i' faith. Come, throw off clouds. Now, brother, think of vengeance and deeper settled hate. Sirrah, sit fast, we'll pull down all, but thou shalt down at last.
And exit. And the one thing that I really like about Thomas Middleton is, he's really talking to our own modern sensibilities, because, we often struggle with these familial relationships where, because someone's married to someone, they just say brother or thing, because, well, the moment you're married, then that just swamps elides all of the familial relationships together. Whereas today would say, in law or something like that, but in the time they did. And it's like, yeah, we've got this confused. We know it's confusing. This is a plot point for the wrong person getting killed. Huzzah! And so that's really rather fun. I like not our brother. No. Oh God, no. We didn't mean that. No. And of course, this is the point. They've killed the person who is the youngest, who is therefore not a threat to them. And so I'm sure if he was their elder brother, they'd be perfectly happy to kill him. But because it's the younger, it's genuinely a terrible thing for them. Oh well, never mind. They're such lovely people. Lynn.
So, yeah, and I love how this sequence starts out with them arguing about whose idea it was. I mean, it's just like they're so petty. And then it's their own brother and not. I nominate Mark for the non-existent YouTube Oscar for the way he delivered who's that?
I also love the fact that they threatened to beat the poor officer with the head. It's just like, gonna get you with a wet end. Aliki.
Which would make it the second dead head used as a murder weapon in, the last 5 minutes. But we keep talking about humor, but in this scene, surely you gotta have it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's just so hilarious. Dumb and Dumber plot a murder over there.
Yeah, in that sense, they are sort of a slightly demonic brokers men here, aren't they? They are there to be doing this Tweedledum and Tweedledee back and forth of, it was my plan to murder. No, it was my plan. He's dead. And all of these little lines, confusion, darkness, devils, bam, bam, bam. It's absolutely for laughs. There's no way you can do it any other way. If you try not to, I'd be amazed if you still don't get a laugh. Mark.
The student-run Shakespeare group that I did a bunch with in college did this show my last semester, and I wasn't in it. I was in other stuff at the time, as much as it would be fun to do this. But if I recall correctly, this was like 10 years ago, but I'm pretty sure that on all of those plagues, confusions, darkness, devils, they were each it was like they were like hot potatoing with the head, throwing it back and forth. Good stuff.
Yes. Other comedy options are available, as it were. Okay. Let's go into our final scene of the session before we run out of time. Act 4, Scene 1. Enter Lussurioso with Hippolito.
Hippolito!
My lord, has your good lordship ought to command me in?
I prithee, leave us.
How's this? Come and leave us?
Hippolito?
Your honor, I stand ready for any duteous employment.
Heart, what makest thou here?
Pretty lordly humor, he bids me be present to depart. Something has stung his honor.
Be nearer. Draw nearer. You're not so good, methinks. I'm angry with you.
With me, my lord? I'm angry with myself for it.
You did prefer a goodly fellow to me. 'Twas wittily elected, 'twas. I thought he'd been a villain, and he proves a knave to me, a knave.
I chose him for the best, my lord. 'Tis much my sorrow if neglect in him breed discontent in you.
Neglect. 'Twas will. Judge of it, firmly to tell of an incredible act not to be thought, less to be spoken of twixt my stepmother and the bastard, of incestuous sweets between them.
Why, my lord?
I, in kind loyalty to my father's forehead, made this a desperate harm, and in that fury committed treason on the lawful bed, and with my sword e'en raised to my father's bosom, for which it was within a stroke of death.
Alack, I'm sorry. Which just upon the stroke jars in my brother. 'Twill be villainous music.
Enter Vindice.
My honoured lord.
Away! Prithee forsake us, hereafter will not know thee.
Not know me, my lord. Your lordship cannot choose.
Be gone, I say, thou art a false knave.
Why, the easier to be known, my lord.
Shh. I shall prove too bitter with a word. Make thee a perpetual prisoner, and lay this iron age upon thee.
None, for there's a doom would make a woman dumb. Missing the bastard, next him the winds come about. Now 'tis my brother's turn to stay, mine to go out.
Exit Vindice.
Has greatly moved me.
Much to blame in faith.
But I'll recover to his ruin. 'Twas told me lately, I knew not whether falsely, that you'd a brother.
Who I? Yes, my good lord, I have a brother.
How chance the court ne'er saw him? Of what nature? How does he apply his hours?
Faith, to curse fates who, as he thinks, ordained him to be poor. He keeps at home, full of want and discontent.
There's hope in him, for discontent and want is the best clay to mold a villain of. Hippolito, wish him repair to us. If there be aught in him to please our blood, for thy sake we'll advance him and build fair his meanest fortunes. For it is in us to rear up towers from cottages.
It is so, my lord. He will attend your honor, but he's a man in whom much melancholy dwells.
Why the better. Bring him to court.
With willingness and speed. Whom he casts off even now, must now succeed. Brother, disguise must off. In thine own ship now I'll prefer thee to him. How strangely does himself work to undo him.
Exit Hippolito.
This fellow will come fitly. He shall kill that other slave that did abuse my spleen and made it swell to treason. I have put much of my heart into him. He must die. He that knows great men's secrets and proves slight, that man ne'er lives to see his beard turn white. Aye, he shall speed him. I'll employ the brother. Slaves are but nails to drive out one another. He being of black condition, suitable to want and ill content, hope of preferment will grind him to an edge.
Enter some nobles.
Good days unto your honour.
My kind lords, I do return the like.
Saw you, my lord the Duke?
My lord and father, is he from court?
He's sure from court. But where? Which way his pleasure took, we know not, nor can we hear on't.
Here come those should tell. Saw you, my lord and father?
And not since 2 hours before noon, my lord. And then he privately rode forth.
Oh, he's rid forth.
It was wondrous privately.
There's none in the court had any knowledge on't.
His grace is old and sudden. 'Tis no treason to say the Duke, my father, has a humour or such a toy about him. What in us would appear light, in him seems virtuous.
'Tis oracle, my lord.
And they exit. So, yes, we sort of as you can tell, as we skip into a new act, and the act structure is presumably moderately important, we've had a moment in the end, the end of the last act was doing an awful lot of stuff, and big, spectacular things were going on, and now we're sort of gearing plot back into action again a bit, and getting some stuff ticking over for the next unit of action, and getting us into the next little bit. And dealing with some of the sort of issues with earlier scenes of like, hang on, you set me up. Ooh, better do some dancing. I'll just nip off stage. Leave you to do all the work for a bit. Hang on, we'll just tag as we pass. As the two brothers, it has to be said that Hippolito doesn't always doesn't get the cred that Vindice does, because he's so much more demonstrative. But Hippolito is doing a lot of work in this play. He's not a small part by any stretch of the imagination, and is just as sort of responsible for things happening. In terms of it's the backstage people. They never get the credit. Thoughts in the room, Lynn?
I mean, there's just so many great twists in this. So I hear you have a brother. Why do you ask? I mean, I just think that would be so much fun to play around with as an actor. Like, Hippolito not trying to give it all away and managing not to. But yeah, so Vindice is going to be hired to kill himself. It's just great. Sorry.
Yeah. Other thoughts? Anybody else want to leap in here before I start drifting us towards final thoughts, as it were? Just double checking that, yes, we haven't gone to the point where I meant to get to. It'd been awkward if we had to read another scene. Okay, I think we have. So we are 2/3 of the way through the play. Somewhere in there we need to put an interval. I think after the maximalist point of death is probably a place to put it, but maybe not. It's an interesting question for a modern audience, of course, this irritating thing of having to put an interval in, which is less annoying than not putting an interval in, speaking as someone who requires decent lumbar support and the opportunity to stretch one's legs every so often. I wouldn't want to do this all the way through without an interval. So that's an interesting structural question. And yeah, the games that this play is playing, the opportunities it's giving actors to play. I mean, it really is. There aren't many parts in this where I'm going, it's not much. That's not much of a part. I mean, even the small parts are still parts, even if you're not saying a lot. And when you're on, you know who everybody is. I mean, okay, yes, there are a lot of random nobles. They're not necessarily very interesting. And it would probably be part of our job is to slightly trim back some of the first servant, first noble, for the gentleman. Who the hell's gentleman? Who is that? Who is he? That's what I want to know. So there's all of those things, but yeah, organising murders, it's always very enjoyable. There's a lot of detailed work that would have to be done in rehearsal for that. I'm of course talking about fake murders, just for clarity. So much more cleaning up you have to do with a real one. So Aliki, any final thoughts?
I'm warming to this play. The misogyny really got me in the first section, but I'm starting to see kind of the whole gleeful, grand guignol, over the topness of it as a pleasurable artifice. So I'm in.
Yes, because it is sort of like Kind Hearts and Coronets in that sort of logic of or some of those other revenge things where it is basically you're just ticking off the murders, aren't you? How is he going to sort out the next murder? Perhaps it's more the abominable Dr. Vibes. It really is, because it's so over the top as it goes on, and it is that thing that they don't have a coherent plan. A lot of these plans are really on the hoof of going, oh, hang on, we'll just send them over there and that'll make mischief, and then they're looking for the opportunity for the actual. I'm sure the poisoning with the skull has been in his mind for better part of a decade, but how to get there and organise it is really involving a lot of dancing, and there's a lot of pleasure, I think, to be had out of that. Mark, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I also definitely enjoyed this middle portion more than the first third. Yeah, the middle ton of the play, really. Um,
Very good. Very good.
but yeah, I mean, yeah, it's been a while since I've read this one, so looking forward to the final portion when we get around to it.
Yes, place your bets now. Who's going to survive? There's no point asking who's going to die. The question is really who will be here by the end of the next session. Eric, any final thoughts?
I kind of want to like do this with like sort of giving the audience bingo cards and sort of having them like sort of pick like because they don't know how Vindice is going to kill them, so obviously kind of just like picking out sort of the murders and stuff. I don't know. I really don't know what to do with this play because like it's over the top from the beginning, so it just kind of like hits you like a train if you're not paying attention. Which is to say, I was kind of lost. Not lost, but I mean, it has one trick, and it keeps doing it over and over. I feel, and maybe that's just me.
Well, I suppose murder is it could be described that way. Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't
but
really
I
have
think
a
there is a point about
journey,
confusion.
like,
You know, the brothers get confused as to which brother they're killing. It's actually quite important the audience doesn't get confused over that point, because there is pleasure to be got out of knowing that it's the wrong brother being killed when he's being killed. And actually, it is possible to go into that scene not realizing they're killing the wrong brother, because we, as modern times, are also confused about who is technically brother to whom, the filial relationships and how they function. It's like when they're talking about having incest with your mother, because it's not actually literally incest, it's only incest within the logic of etc. So it is confusing, and so there is a question in production of narrative focus to make sure you're not getting lost. Alan, any final thoughts?
Not that many. It's still not grabbing me, but it's just a genre that doesn't really do things for me, I'm afraid.
Lynn, have I been to you already? No, I haven't. Lynn, any final thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, Alan is a good test case. That this isn't for everybody.
Well, no, but no play is for everyone, and it's not a question of who the audience is for a play like this. It's what is the best production we can find out of it.
Yeah, I remember when I was younger going to see, I don't know, a Mel Brooks thing or like a Monty Python movie, just really hating it the first time through. I'm just like not in the mood. So you really have to be on its wavelength, and I think Aliki has also a legitimate reaction at the misogyny so intense in the first third. But so you kind of, I think, in production have to rattle through that so that you get to the juicy bits, as it were, sooner, because it's really not. I mean, I would argue it's not the misogyny. The misogyny is not of the play; it's of the characters. Everyone is horrible in almost every way you can imagine. So I don't think we're supposed to agree with the misogyny or buy it. We're supposed to see it as one of the many, many negative things about the characters. So that's something I hadn't really noticed about the play before, and then that sort of slower read through in the first session brought that out. But yeah, I mean, I think if you're kind of in the right mind frame, it's just hilarious. I guess I'm a bad person because I find it hilarious.
Yes, no, and I think it is designed to be hilarious. I don't, it's also designed to be dark and scary and all sorts of things, and it's flipping modes. We often get tricked or confused sometimes. It's happened a lot when we were doing Marston, of just going, he would switch from one mode to another in lines, and you're going, oh my god, that's suddenly horrible. Oh my god, and it is a strive for effect that I think Middleton is playing with here. And yeah, it's that we're not supposed to emulate any of the people in this play. we are allowed to enjoy what Vindice is doing, but we're not supposed to think he's a good person. Yeah. Right. I'll go back to Eric briefly.
I think Susan wanted to say something as well, but I'm not sure.
Oh,
yeah, well, I'm going to Susan in a moment. I'm coming back to you.
Yeah. Basically, I was gonna say that like I kind of like it's like a mix of Arden of Faversham and Hoffman, but like it has this one plot going, and if you're not interested in the one plot and you get lost by the sort of branches of it, then it kind of it loses you. It can lose you very easily, I think.
Well, I'm not sure there's one plot. I mean, there are multiple plots flying around here. There's sort of one, and it's not even one driver actually. They're all ambitious, and so they're doing all sorts of different things. The other problem is, of course, we are doing this at quite a remove since the last session, so there is a slight discontinuity sense for us all of trying to remember what happened last time and how it all flows. So that also will have an interesting thing. Connor, any final thoughts?
I love this play. If a play was ever representative of a generation, this is the play for Gen X. It's just, it should be directed by Rob Zombie, and maybe Marilyn Manson would be in it with Johnny Depp for a bit of controversy. Everything about this play I just think is just brilliant. And I love hearing it. I haven't listened to it or heard it for a long time, so it's been really nice to just sit back and listen to it. I forget how beautiful the language is, and that is why it's in my top 3 plays ever.
Well, without saying anything that might get us sued, that casting might be a little on point. Susan, any final thoughts? Don't say anything that I have to edit out later, please.
I'm going somewhere else. Space. I want to know the size of the rooms for each scene. This is me, the actor in me. I love the play. I'm just dying to play it in different. What is happening with the design? I need a designer, and I want to know: was that a small room where he's being poisoned with the head, banging against the walls? It's how the use of space for the actor that really interests me.
Yes,
because I went to mime school in Paris. I went to Lecoq, and I'm really interested in how playful you could be with space along with the playful language.
Yes, because it's an interesting question about what space they'd be using, because it's a Kingsmen play, and at this point it may have originated in a space like the Globe, as opposed to when we were looking at Malfi, which was very much an indoor logic to it, which I was talking about claustrophobia. This doesn't feel claustrophobic in the same way, and it feels more outwardly going to the audience and playing to them. So a larger space fits this as a logic. That's not to say you can't contract it and you can't do it in a smaller space.
But isn't it interesting to do it the opposite way? You know, you don't always fall in love with all your makeup on. You know, how about doing it? How about you turning it on its head? I just think there'd be some fantastic. You could be as anarchic with space as you are with the language.
I'll go back to Lynn.
Just as an erstwhile designer, Sue, let me just say I love you.
I love you.
We're thinking about that, and I had an inspiration while we were sitting there. In my imaginary production, I don't know much more about the space or the furnishings, but the backdrop is suggestive of a giant circus tent.
Whoa! Yes. I'm off now. I'm fine.
Yeah, and that's one of the questions. You know, what are these changes of elements? What do they do to a production? What scale of production would we be looking at? At the moment, I'm not thinking of contracting this play particularly. I mean, tidying up some of the nobles and the gentlemen, but it's not about reducing the cast size per se. I think it's got to be a large cast size, whatever you do. It's more just about knowing who the people in the court are and how they function. This isn't a kind of play where I would say I'm actively thinking about how do you contract it and simplify it, because I don't think it actually responds to that. I think it's looking for a big company and it fits within a large repertoire. So again, that affects the design decisions that you'd be making and the shape of the court that you're playing with and what those decisions do. I'll go back to Connor.
Yeah, that's a great point how it's designed. I think both both are valid. Like the National Theatre production was huge, and it was very grand and Italian. It had the paintings of Caravaggio were the kind of starting point for the production. But I think, I very much from clowning as well, and I think there's a lot of elements of these characters which have their basis in the archetype of clowning, which suit a more intimate setting, which then makes it even more horrible when these deaths occur right in front of you. And I think it's so valid to be played either way. As a classical actor, I love the idea of the big stage and the big production values, but really small, intimate venue, like almost like in a box where you can't escape, where it just becomes even more like you're drowning in blood, I think is also a valid interpretation of how it could be staged.
Yes, because that changes, again, the audience response to the deaths in a big space, and it's all very far away, and it therefore doesn't necessarily have impact. Are we looking for impact in those murders in the same way? If we do it in a smaller space, they will have impact, and that will then change the tone of what the production is doing.
Just lock the doors and no one can get out.
That's
there's been a number of productions recently in glass boxes. That kind of claustrophobia and banging against the glass. I mean, how fabulous would that be?
But then you're shutting down probably all of the humour out of it then. And what do you do with the Supervacuo and Ambitioso? Those comedy moments would shift, which is not inherently a bad thing. It's just it changes the shape of the show. Anyway, I must go to Brian. Brian, any final thoughts?
Yeah, my starting point on the revenge plays is like Alan's. When we read Duchess of Malfi, for example, I came to appreciate much more how it's crafted and what's good about it. But it doesn't really move me. It's so extreme, so over the top, so out of nowhere for me emotionally that I get it, but I'm not moved by it. What's different about this play is the humor. The other revenge plays are so earnest that I can't take them seriously because it's just too far beyond me. But the humor in this brings me down ultimately closer to Connor's position on it. This is delightful. It is so much fun to watch that I love it. It also so the humor is in part as Eric's suggestion that you do this with a bingo card indicates. It's partly a parody, or could be perceived as a parody of the other revenge plays, and it's even got a parody of itself, as we've remarked in the course of this reading, with the other two brothers who come bumbling in with their own little Two Stooges version of the beating people over with a skull to kill them. And that just makes me want to point out that one of the best parodies of an early modern play is of this one, if you haven't read it yet. Crying of Lot 49 by Thomas Pynchon. The plot hangs heavily on a play called The Courier's Tragedy that is conceived as a parody of this. So if you want to go way over the top, look there.
Yeah, well, actually, one of the best parodies of revenge tragedy is from this period. It's Geronimo, which is a excellent spoof of the Spanish tragedy. In fact, one of the problems with Geronimo is that it so thoroughly deconstructs the Spanish tragedy. It's very hard to take the Spanish tragedy seriously, having watched the spoof version, which is one of the reasons why I'm slightly reluctant to do it. I kind of don't want to, and that's one of the problems. Spoofs are surprisingly corrosive on genre, and because the moment you start mocking those conventions, then it becomes very, very, and that's, I think, what's happening with revenge tragedy here, is that actually, because people have already started to see the absurdity in tragedies, you kind of have to invite some laughter in, because you're going to get it anyway, because everybody already knows what these plays are doing. So I think that's what's happening generically here, is that it's an acknowledgement that laughter is something that comes through. It's similar with melodrama as well, certainly later melodrama revivals. Thinking of Todd Slaughter here, he was always open to the audience laughing, so long as they didn't play for laughs, and that was the important. That there was room for humour, but it wasn't that you were a spoof of yourselves. So those are food for thought. I just thought I'd throw in there. Well, any other final thoughts? Rachel's been lurking. I don't know if Rachel wants to dive in and just say something. No, you're good. Any additional thoughts? We will hold on till the next time. It's going to be for us a little while before we come back to the final denouement. But you will get it very soon, I'm sure, on the YouTubes. You can also join us on these video escapades as we read through plays and try to find out the best way of producing them in the future, or for that matter, for you to produce them in the future. But you can always join us. There are sign-up sheets on our website, beyondshakespeare.org. You can always join us. It's completely free and open. Anyone can join us, and we'll just allocate parts in a relatively random manner, and hopefully nobody dies except in the plays. So all that remains to thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. When the bad bleeds, then is the tragedy good.